President Trump also saying he was pleased with the reaction to the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports and coastal areas in the Strait of Hormuz, saying it has been amazing. The president also expressing optimism that oil prices will drop and the war in Iran could end soon.
If you told me that we were going to be at only $92 a barrel, I would have been very surprised.
All right.
And you know what? I'm very happy. And it's going to come dropping down very big as soon as it's over. I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. But we'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
President Trump also addressed Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, saying he could move to fire him if he does not leave his post when his term expires next month. Powell's term as chair ends on May 15th, but he could remain in place temporarily if a successor is not confirmed by the Senate. The president has nominated former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh, but his confirmation has not yet been finalized. And on AI, the president says the U.S. is leading China, citing his move to allow companies to build their own power plants. The president also addressing the midterms, saying his administration is working hard to reverse the trend that the ruling party usually loses seats. President Trump said today that China has agreed not to provide weapons to Iran. Joining us now is Casey Fleming, chairman and CEO of Black Ops Partners Corporation and author of the book, The Red Tsunami, The Silent Storm, Killing Your Freedom. Casey, good afternoon. Always good to see you. So can you speak to us about this? What has been China's actions in this war? Has it been providing weapons to Iran?
Yes, they have been providing weapons to Iran. Even during the first week of the war, there were 2 Iranian ships seen in port in China loading solid rocket fuel. So I absolutely believe President Trump is telling the truth, that Xi Jinping said, no, we will not arm Iran. But the point is, you can't trust Xi Jinping or the Chinese Communist Party. They have honored nothing in the past. For example, they've said many times with Obama, with Biden, with Trump in his first administration that we will curtail fentanyl, but fentanyl is still rocketing the numbers. So anything that they promise, they never deliver. And that is part of their strategy. That is the communist strategy, to say one thing and fade up on top while you continue feverishly to do the opposite under the table.
Okay, you're correct about China's record, and that raises serious concerns. But what is China's strategy specifically? If it's appearing to say one thing to President Trump and then behind his back do another thing, I mean, it's not like the U.S. won't find out about China's actions. So what is the strategy here?
Well, we may or may not find out about the strategy. They have cloaked mechanisms for delivering these weapons. Namely, right now, shoulder-fired Stinger missiles, or equivalent shoulder-fired Stinger. Stinger is a U.S. missile. So we know that those are in transit. The intelligence community does know that, and there are other things that are being supplied to Iran during the ceasefire. So, and on the other side, as far as opening the Strait of Hormuz, here's the point, we are in a hot war. The United States is not in a war just with Iran. We are in a war with China. Remember, China is the grand master over Russia, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea, Venezuela, drug cartels. And under Iran, the CCP has Iran managing the prime terrorist state, managing 6 terrorist organizations. So all China has to say is open up the Strait of Hormuz, and trust me, they've been strategic partners for well over a dozen years, and they would open up the Strait of Hormuz in a heartbeat. The point is, China's playing one game while doing another.
Okay, so about this hot war with Iran, what is China's interest in this war specifically?
The interest is completely to continue to weaken the United States. China has been involved with Ukraine, with the Russian-Ukrainian war since day one. They've been partnered with the Mexican drug cartels strategically for over a decade, with fentanyl and money laundering and human trafficking and child theft, those kind of things. I mean, they are a very dark and diabolical regime if you understand who the Chinese Communist Party is. So when we're fighting Iran, we definitely are fighting China behind the scenes. Now, China's not showing their face directly on this thing, but those negotiations, those 10 points of negotiation to sit down on the first set of trade talks were all created by China. And it was 100% a U.S. surrender, which was the result, or really the summary of those 10 points. So we are fighting China. We have been with unrestricted war for the past 30 years, but then also going after Iran with a hot war or conventional war means that we're also going after China with a hot war. We did it with Venezuela. We did it with the head of the top drug cartel in Mexico. We're beating them back, not to mention what's going on right now with the Indonesian agreement, security agreement. So all these things combined, we salute Trump for beating China back after 30 years of being unchecked in their global aggression and global soft as well as military footprint. But this thing, make no mistake, this is China. We are, this is a tit for tat against China. We're choking them from an energy perspective, not just what's going on with Iran, but we're choking China from an energy perspective because they said, hey, we got you on rare earths. Trump came back and said, well, we're going to choke you on energy. So we're in a war with China, make no mistake. And when all this hand waving going on with Iran, which is very important, and it is changing history, don't forget the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the Chinese Communist Party.
All right, Casey, a couple of threads here I want to pull on. So you said in this war with Iran, we're also fighting China. You said the 10-point plan was by China, and it's a U.S. surrender that the U.S. agreed to it, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But how does the U.S. win then, if you're saying it was a surrender? How does the U.S. come up on top victorious?
Let me clarify. The first 10-point plan that Iran put forth in the negotiations, that 10-point plan, when you summed it all up, if we agreed, and we did not agree to that 10-point plan, had we agreed to that 10-point plan, it would have been the summary of an American surrender on everything. They would still have nuclear capability, nuclear enrichment capability. They would still control, the IRGC would still control the Strait of Hormuz. We would let them out of their sanctions. I mean, it was complete surrender. And trust me, they would not have the authority or the gumption to put forth that unless China was completely behind it. When you understand the strategic partnership that China has with Iran and also Pakistan, that's also critically important. All this stuff comes together when you connect those dots. But if you're just looking this through an Iran war lens, you're only going to see what you're seeing up in front of your face. But there's a much bigger, much more powerful story behind the scenes when you know how to connect the dots.
Okay, so what has been the impact of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and the effective closure before the blockade as well on China? Because energy goes through that strait and a lot of it goes to China.
Yeah, China gets most of its energy through the Strait of Hormuz. So choking that Strait of Hormuz, all they had to do is say, hey, keep it closed for a week, but you need to reopen it. They could absolutely do that. Now that the United States has come in and basically performed and is performing a blockade, that changes the dynamic on Iran as well. It chokes Iran, but it also chokes China from an energy standpoint. So it was a smart move by Trump. It's going to go on for, I think, and we think, quite a long period of time. This police action in Hormuz is going to require quite a bit of time. Remember, IRGC still has drones under the water, drones on the surface of the water, drones in the air, combatants on the banks of the Strait of Hormuz. So in no way is this thing over. Yes, we've beaten them back into the Stone Age with their infrastructure, but the CCP has been helping them for over a dozen years, burying command and control and manufacturing, missile manufacturing, and storage inside of caves of granite and under the ground as well. So this, in our opinion, it's far from over. Yes, an air war, there's not much else to bomb from an air war perspective, but these terrorists are still in charge of the population. One last thing to remember, just another one of 100 things that the CCP has done to help China, is that they've taken stolen U.S. technology, which is surveillance, facial recognition, all that, to help the IRGC record and track dissidents and people who have a different opinion about the IRGC and want the IRGC out of power. They go to those homes, rip them out, and kill those people. And they also have snipers on rooftops to keep these people killed. The number that we have today in the intelligence community is, so far, the IRGC has killed over 80,000 innocent Iranian citizens.
Okay, so Casey, interesting development yesterday. Let me get your comments on this. The U.S. increasing defense cooperation with Indonesia. And the interesting part of that is it's giving Washington eyes over the Strait of Malacca. How do you read that situation? What is the significance? Is China vulnerable to pressure at Malacca?
Yes, they are. Most of their shipments, their oil shipments, come through that Strait of Malacca. And they have put in strategic partnerships all around the South China Sea and the South Pacific, which is Solomon Islands was one of the most recent ones. So this is another attempt by Trump to beat back China's global aggression. Now, remember, while all this Iran war was happening, something else happened by the Chinese Communist Party. They took over this island/reef 300 kilometers south of the current position of the current landholding of the Chinese Communist Party. So what that does, it extends now the international waters 300 kilometers south of where it is now in the South China Sea for the Chinese Communist Party. So that means we can't perform surveillance. Now we're 300 kilometers south, which is international waters where we can perform surveillance. So what they're doing is they're still building islands, strategic island, building them so they can call them their own islands, which should be against all international war and international treaties. So you have a very sneaky and deliberate enemy. You have to think like your enemy. And the problem with the United States and the West, we don't think like our enemy. And the enemy is very clear. It's the Chinese Communist Party.
Okay, well said. Let me just ask you one last question here. So taking everything into consideration, and we know the meeting between President Trump and Xi Jinping is coming up in a few weeks, the cumulative impact on China with Venezuela, Iran, maybe the Strait of Malacca, does that put China in a weaker position going into this meeting with the United States?
It does to a small degree. Remember, in the mind of the Chinese Communist Party, it is their destiny to rule the world with no other state or country as a co-leader or a co-owner of the world. So their intent is to completely deny and destroy the Western civilization and the United States for total communist takeover. It's part of their 100-year plan from 1949. And they're way ahead of that plan, which is 2049. They're way ahead of that plan. We're showing it to be around 2035 of total global domination. So, remember, these guys never show weakness. Feign your power, play to your enemy's ego, all these things. And that's one thing Trump has, is a pretty strong ego. So they will say, oh, you're our friend. We will work with you. Anything that you need. The problem is Trump's telling the truth when he's being told this from Xi Jinping and the CCP. He's telling the truth. But those of us who know the CCP and Xi Jinping know it's an absolute lie. So Trump is, in our opinion, Trump is being manipulated, or on street terms, he's being played, both by the Chinese Communist Party and by Putin.
Yeah, well said. Let me just reiterate one thing you said. China is ahead of schedule in its global world domination. Casey, thank you for speaking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are set to vote